partying. Okay, I know I've talked at length about various things in relation to college, and that is a fact, right? But I've been thinking. I was thinking this past week when I was on a little bit of a break. I wasn't partying during this break because I was sick, but while I was sick, I was thinking. I was like, damn. A lot of people have varying college experiences, and I would say that a lot of people in different generations have a varying college experience as well. It's not necessarily, yeah, I would say that someone who is a Gen Z student isn't necessarily having the same experience as a kid who partied as a millennial in college. I just think that's an opinion of mine. I've seen kind of partying shift and change based on the way that trends in the alcohol and other substance markets have changed. What is my point? What are you trying to say, Anuj? Okay, here's what I'm trying to say. I feel like there's a new craze, there's a new hype, and there's a new hype alcohol right now. We can't not acknowledge it. I will talk about it later. It's called hard seltzer. And the rise of hard seltzer and White Claw and Truly, which are the two main brands of that, brings about this whole new set of questions in regards to Gen Z's substance consumption habits and their values. So, Anuj, what the hell are you saying that hard seltzer is taking over the market? Let me explain. The beer market has consistently declined. And I've done a lot of research on the numbers of the beer market. So let's get right into it. The reality is there's a lot of people my age, right? And I talk to a lot of people my age because that's just my age group. And these are the people I hang out with. I don't hang out with people really above my age or below my age. So a lot of people my age say you talk to them in the streets, you talk to them just hanging out, and they hate the way that beer tastes. It's the reality. You talk to a lot of people who are around the ages of 18 to 23, and most of them are like, I fucking hate beer. It's disgusting. It's gross. There's a minority of people that definitely love the taste of beer, and I would say that I'm in that minority. But a lot of people don't really like beer all that much. They drink it to get drunk, or they drink it because it's got that social capital value. Not a lot of people really like beer, and of course, but I've of course there are some people that love it, but a lot of people who I've talked to have had, like, this is tends to be the story of the people that I've talked to. I talk to people and they're like, there was this one time I tried this beer that was in my brother's fridge or my cousin's fridge, and it was an IPA or it was a dark beer, and it sucked. And it tasted like shit and it tasted like piss. And so because of that, I refuse to ever drink beer. Or I really have a really bad experience with beer because it tasted so bad the first time that I really refuse to try it. So a lot of people have had these really unfavorable experiences with beer. And this isn't just one person. This just tends to be a lot of people that I've discussed beer with. And the fact is the market share is changing. Not a lot of people, the narrative of marketing Bud Light and cheap beer was once super lucrative to market it to college students. But now, when college students aren't necessarily digging the taste of beer anymore, it's changing dramatically. There's almost a need for a new type of quote unquote cool alcohol. So now you have these like sweeter drinks that are more sort of tailored to the taste of a younger generation who, well, let's face it, guys, what did we grow up on when we were younger? It was like, what has been the constant reality of Gen Z? Obesity has grown in this country. Okay. Why is that? Because this generation, this younger generation, has grown up on sugar. They've grown up on more sweets, on more sugar, on more desserts, and they've had access to sugar probably easier than ever, easier than any other generation. But there's also a variety of other reasons as to why hard seltzer and White Claw have taken over. One of the main things is let's talk about the pandemic for a second, because the pandemic has had a huge impact on the way that we consume alcohol. The factor is that the decline of beer is partially due to the fact that independent breweries right now in the United States of America are struggling. They're struggling. During the pandemic in 2020, people probably assumed, like, there's a lot of people out there, and I myself included until I did the research, assumed that the alcohol industry kind of thrived, right? A lot of people were drinking, a lot of people were at home, they were buying alcohol. So there was this assumption that there was a thriving alcohol industry. But the reality is simple. The bigger brands, the Bud Lights, the Coors, the Coronas, whatever you drink, did really well. But the small time brewery owners, the ones you go to the bar and you try their house beer on tap, they did really bad because they thrive on you going and visiting the bars. They thrive on people going out, on people partying, on people trying their house beers for the first times at tap rooms or at bars, whatever. Those independent breweries struggled to remain afloat. And actually, you saw a 9% decline in overall market share for beer and in craft beer, which is the most that has been seen really in the modern era since it's been tracked, since the statistic has been tracked in 2020. And the flavor of beer has been cited by craft breweries as well as breweries to being one of the main reasons, and to being one of the main reasons of it not fitting in. A lot of craft brewery owners have been quoted by saying like they've been struggling because a lot of people in the younger generation don't relate to that flavor and aren't necessarily like drinking a lot of beer because they don't like the taste of it. And it's come this is sort of one of the reasons that we have come to this time now that there's this alternative alcohol. The people are looking for what is the next big thing? What is the next thing? But listen, we can't not talk about a change in partying without talking about the rise of a completely new substance. 20 years ago, marijuana in this country was illegal. Now, today, marijuana is legal in over 18 states and in a lot of different cities around the country. It's the elephant in the room. Is drinking simply not as popular anymore? It's a fair question. Here's one of the other realities. We continuously are living in a country where marijuana is consistently getting legalized day by day in different cities, in different states, and alcohol now is suddenly not the only substance that you can consume legally to get quote unquote lit or to have a good time, because marijuana and cannabis is competing with it, and they both have different effects on different people. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's preference now. You have options. A lot of people in Gen Z, actually, I've done surveys on this on my Instagram, by the way, at the Changabi Show, if you'd like to participate in the questions of the night. A lot of people in Gen Z really do prefer smoking weed. A lot of people, there's studies out there that say there's a lot of people in Gen Z that prefer smoking marijuana than to drinking alcohol, and they put marijuana as their substance of choice rather than drinking for a variety of reasons. Some people feel a little more chill on it. Some people like pot because of the way it feels. Medicinal marijuana has also become more popular. There's a variety of reasons. I'm not the marijuana concept of this is a whole separate topic. But listen, drinking is still considerably popular with the American population. Nearly over 60% of the American population partakes in it on some level. But the thing is, the introduction of cannabis is introducing this shift in partying and is introducing this change in partying that perhaps we have yet to see. Because, I mean, legalization of cannabis had started 2017, 2016, 2015. We have yet to see the long-term effects on how a party is going to look maybe 15, 20 years down the road when marijuana continues to be legalized throughout the country. But we also live in a generation that is very open to the idea of clean living and clean partying. This isn't, the 1980s, the 1990s where you're just scarfing down beer. You're just, drinking whatever's in front of you to get drunk. A lot of people in this generation and with this younger people are cognizant of nutrition. Nutrition and health have become a huge part of American life. It's become more out there. I'm not saying everybody is healthy. I'm not saying everyone is super health conscious, but there are a lot of people that are conscious when in the drinks that they're consuming. Beer causes bloating. There's a lot of different things. That's why the no carb Bud Light beer has come out. The 100-calorie Miller Lite has been super popular. There's a lot of these things. There is sort of this idea that you need to be kind of in a clean living, clean partying type of vibe. And there are a considerable number of people who are looking at alcohol and trying to be more nutritious. I guess not nutritious, that's not the right word, but trying to be more cognizant of some of the more nutritional facts and what's going into their bodies. So let's cue the hard seltzer. And I feel like in honor of this topic, I have earned the right to open this White Claw pineapple flavored. We are not sponsored, but White Claw, hit us up at the Changavi Show everywhere. Cheers. So, okay, next question, right? cue the hard seltzer. The hard seltzer has sort of become this alternative alcohol, so to speak. So, Anuj, what is the hard seltzer's role in the market? Good question. Hard seltzer, through their marketing, has really started promoting laid back partying and chill vibes. That's what they've been going for with White Claw in particular. You look at their branding, you look at their marketing, that's where they're headed. And that sort of message has spoken to this Generation Z that seems to be a generation that's leaning less into the hard partying, keg stand partying, and more so the chill kickbacks, talking and hanging out type of vibe. Less alcohol content sparked with more flavor seems to be where Gen Z wants to head in regards to their drinking. And White Claw and Truly are two brands in particular that are really focused on being sort of more approachable with their taste and being in an environment that's comfortable for everyone. Best way to describe White Claw as someone who hasn't drunk White Claw, by the way, it's basically like LaCroix. It's sparkling water mixed with a little bit of the flavor and alcohol, of course. So it's kind of like that. And speaking of LaCroix, I think one of the reasons why White Claw has become so popular is because of LaCroix. LaCroix in this generation, for some reason, I mean, I guess it has to do with like the vibe and the aesthetic of LaCroix being this kind of healthier, or not healthier, but just like a new alternative to water, and sparkling water making this comeback, and White Claw sort of being the alcoholic version of LaCroix. The popularity has risen along with the way that sparkling water has as well. So listen, we've talked about White Claw and Truly and all of this stuff, but how have they become popular? White Claw and Truly, I mean, frankly, their branding has a lot to do with young people, because for a long time, these types of drinks, White Claws, wine coolers, sort of not like alcoholic drinks that were sweeter, were considered ladies' drinks. Like in the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of people would look at these drinks and be like, ew, these are for girls. But YouTubers like Trevor Wallace, and really like Churdleys, honestly, like to their credit, have used White Claws in videos. They've made it a big part of it. And I mean, they weren't sponsored by White Claw or anything, but like they shifted the culture more to this like concept that like White Claws can, and all of these like or these different sorts of alcoholic drinks could be broy too. It's not just beer all the time. And they made White Claws like quote unquote cool to college kids. All of a sudden it wasn't just, girls drinking it at parties. It's guys prefer this stuff. There's like interviews that are done. Like if you had the choice between a White Claw and an IPA with like frat boys, like what would you pick? And a lot of them pick White Claws now. And it's because of the aesthetic. With alcohol, when you sell alcohol, you're selling vibes. And that's it is raining so hard. I'm so sorry. But when you're selling alcohol, you're selling vibes. And that's the reality of the situation that's going on here. And I discovered White Claw in college, and I thought it was cool because it was an alternative to beer. It was a nice change up. Like, I love beer, don't get me wrong. But, like, drinking a White Claw was definitely a nice change up. And I also just really like the taste of it in general. Okay. But here, I mean, the numbers during the pandemic were just so inflated, right? A lot of people were drinking, a lot of people were trying new stuff, and the numbers have taken a hit in 2021. I'm not to say that, but let me talk a little bit about a personal experience in regards to seltzer. My dad was completely unfamiliar as to like what White Claw was until I came home for COVID, right? I came home 2 years ago, and I started buying White Claws at the store. My dad would be like, "Oh, let's get beer." I'm like, "No, like let's get White Claw. Like you've never tried this before." He's like, "What is this? Like this is gonna be terrible." And then he started trying it, and it basically like slowly became his go-to drink. So much so that there's a lot of beer that sits in our fridge that's undrunk, but White Claws go like this in our household because it's become this sort of go-to drink in our fridge. It's light, it's fun, it's just it's a good summery drink. It's very good for California weather. It just works. And the sales numbers have reflected that in 2020. I mean, Seltzer outsold a lot of beer companies. It became the new thing. It became the new thing so much so that companies like Coors and Bud Light came out with their own seltzers. Eventually, obviously, Seltzer has become, the oversaturated market that it is today. But the fact is, Seltzer is the new thing. And Seltzer is promoting this new age of partying, which is really, really interesting. And I feel like whether we like it or not, partying and Gen Z is shifting the conversation of what partying looks like. It's not so much so this reality of, oh, like it's just drinking at the keg stand and chugging shots and all of these things. We're looking at a different vibe. We're looking at different partying, and it's due to a variety of reasons, like I discussed. Maybe a little bit due to marijuana, maybe a little bit due to us being a more healthy generation, maybe a little bit due to us like looking for a new taste in our alcohol. I don't know. I don't know, but we're seeing a change in partying happening right now. And I think we're seeing a look into new alternative alcohols that could perhaps shift the industry and shift partying in general. Just something to think about. And it was something I was thinking about a lot about. I did a lot of research, looked into it. And I've kind of found that seltzer has begun to take over during the pandemic, and it's become this message of change in partying to the American public, that it's no longer just chugging beers and hard alcohol. There's other options out there, and cleaner options that perhaps could be a little bit lighter on your body. Okay. Is seltzer, I mean, listen, seltzer could potentially be a bunch of hype, right? I'm not here to say that it's not. It's just it's going to be here to stay. I mean, we've seen sort of the seltzer market fizzle out. It's gotten to the point where like companies like Coors have shut down their seltzer brands because they've lost a lot of money. The Topo Chico hard seltzer brand, which is Coca-Cola's sort of hard seltzer wing, has lost a lot of money, lost more than it's gained. That's why they're really going aggressive on the advertising budget. There has been some drop off since 2020, for sure. And it's not like projecting the aggressive growth that maybe we thought it would 2 years ago. But seltzer is popular around the world. It's not just in America, but in Canada and Australia, these same numbers have sort of been reflected. And companies like Germany are developing different seltzers. I mean, you talk about Germany, which is supposed to be like the capital of beer throughout the world. Oktoberfest takes place there, for God's sake. And they are developing things. They are developing hard seltzers because they realize that this is a market that they could attract. So there is a lot changing. And they're definitely, the party scene in the world is changing because Gen Z is bringing out these sort of new, different types of alcohol. And I think it's interesting. I think it's really fascinating to see sort of how this whole thing is shifted. Okay, listen, that was a long topic, and we talked a lot about hard seltzer, and that's fair. But there's a lot more to talk about. I have so many more things that I want to mention. And I was talking a little bit about alternative forms of alcohol.